Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome back once again. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox. We're going live from New York City, kind of. I'm sitting in my restaurant in Brooklyn, Della. We've had to use Zoom, as the rest of the world has, to conduct our social activities. I am far away from my guest today. No issue with social distancing. I thought about wearing a mask, but then I was like, man, that's crazy. So before I introduce my guest, I'm going to give you the message of the week. I usually don't read articles a whole lot, especially news articles, but lately there's been some really interesting stuff coming down the pipe, especially in regards to the restaurant industry. And this was just a general business article from the New York Times earlier this week, entitled, "I don't think the New York that we left will be back for some years." And it's a great just synopsis of what's happening in the business community, especially, is what they were really talking about. There was just a really great quote from this article that stood out to me. "New York City has been the center of calamity before: the September 11th terror attacks, the 2008 banking crisis, the 1970s. And each time, economic life bounced back stronger, but also scarred. The obituary of New York City has been written more than once, and it's always been proven incorrect." Boom! I thought that was fantastic. And my guests today, we have two, both are based in New York City here. So I thought it was very appropriate to bring them on. The first of which is my good friend, Brent Lagerman. Brent, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I was running a little late. I went over to Home Depot, which is why I still have the mask on. But it's not.
What's that Will Ferrell movie? He's like, I'm going to go to Home Depot. And what is that? Do you remember that? Where he's like at the frat party.
I don't remember that.
Every time I hear that, I went to
That's
Home
my
Depot.
life.
I just think of Will Ferrell.
That's my getaway. Whenever I want to get away from the family for a while, it's like, just go to Home Depot, walk down the aisles.
Right. Because you ain't in Brooklyn no more. You don't want to go to the Home Depot here too much. That's like back against the wall, gun to the head. Okay, we'll go to Home Depot. Shit show.
Yeah, no, I'm up in the Hudson Valley in beautiful Cold Spring, New York. Little shout out to Cold Spring. But yeah, we're it's good and bad. We're not able to get to the city quite as easily, but there's plenty of great hiking and outdoor stuff to do. So appreciate being able to get outside a little bit right now. Nice.
Yeah, I bet. So tell everybody about your company, what you do.
Yeah.
Yada, yada.
So my company, I've had a few companies in Brooklyn, actually. The first one was called Mima, and it was a web design company, specifically just designing websites for small businesses, super businesses like restaurants,
like
your
mine.
own. Yeah, and also, artists, just really anybody who needed a website back in the days when you couldn't even have Wix and stuff like that. We were doing this for like the last 15 years. And then even after things like, Wix and Squarespace came along, there's still a lot of people who need more custom work. So we were doing that type of work. And then the whole startup scene started to blow up in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. And because of that, we kind of branched off, and we have another agency, which is also still going strong, called Condensed. And Condensed is basically branding for startups. So we do, whenever a startup is getting started, they usually need a strong brand, like the look and feel and the way that they communicate with people. We help them define all those things. Sometimes we even do things like name the company and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But we came from a web design background, and where we have a lot of programmers on our team. So we always do all of the digital, the online aspect of it, which is kind of maybe what we should talk about today, is just like ways that, companies can go online and still exist in today's kind of craziness.
Absolutely.
And that's doing more and more over the last few weeks and months, is just kind of trying to help some of our clients kind of pivot themselves and change the messaging a little bit, and try to make it so that, that people realize they still exist, they're still doing stuff, they still have value. So that's kind of like the current struggle and how we're trying to help people out.
And you have some experience in brick and mortar as well, because you had a shared workspace here in Brooklyn. You want to tell everybody about that as well?
Yeah, well, that was mainly Teresa, my wife, and her business partner, Abby, started the Founders Workspace up in kind of at the corner of, what is that, 11th Avenue?
10th Ave.
10th Ave in
Have you
Prospect.
been gone that long? Forgot the streets.
When I was there, I'm like, where am I? Yeah. I'm not good with directions, but anyway, yeah, it had been good to just get a lot of people from the neighborhood to share an office space together. And it was cool to meet a lot of small businesses that way. We helped a lot of them with their web presence as well, which is great. But yeah, obviously.
But you know a little bit of the inside story on like actually paying rent and utilities and like having an actual store, a storefront. It's
a struggle even when there isn't COVID going on. So I can't even, I feel like, it was hard enough. It's insane. Like trying to cover rent right now. I wonder how that's going.
Yeah, no, well, a lot of people just aren't. There was another really great article written by the owner of Prune. It's a restaurant in the East Village. They opened in '99 and she closed just a few hours. She just preemptively decided to do it, but just a few hours before Cuomo's, deadline. Here you go. You got to close your dining room. She just like felt it, and they, their operation. I'm sure their rent was astronomical, even after signing subsequent leases. Each time you sign, it goes up again. And it was just this, it's funny because it's not like an obituary of her restaurant. You don't get the sense that she's given up, but it's damn sure melancholy. It's just like, damn. And it talks about like, I'm just reading it and it's like reading pages out of my own life because it's all those things that you go through. And she was saying like over the last 6 or 7 years, it's already, you already under tremendous pressure. It just became not, she was basically, and I say the same joke all the time. I'm basically a nonprofit at this point, it's like I have a nonprofit restaurant because it's just so hard to turn a profit these days. And then you throw something like this in the mix and it's just like the pieces scatter in the air, like those cartoons where they're just like hanging in the air, suspended in time. Nobody knows quite where they're going to land and who's going to get hurt. But somebody will for sure. And it's kind of crazy. Under those circumstances.
One of our larger clients is an outdoor adventure park. So like they basically had, what they do is, it's like a treetop adventure where you have zip lines and you're going and stuff. They have 3 locations now. And, they had easily over $1 million of like pre-sales that basically everybody pulled out of.
Yeah.
So, they're like stressing. I mean, at least like, some people are able to do things to creatively stay open like you, which is great. But then there's others who there's just like no hope. There's nothing that this whole year is just like sunk them pretty much. So, I think they'll be back and they'll do well next year, but this year is a why.
Well, not for nothing. I stayed open, but we're not making any money in 2020. It's just it's gone. But like March, you were like, oh, that's it.
This is a good transition into like what people can do because like you're being really creative in the ways that you're providing a service to the community. I think the community is going to remember that, like it's not, well, they will. They definitely will. And I think that that's the thing that a lot of people who do provide services that are maybe bricks and mortars can try to figure out if it's possible. Maybe it's not, but the ones that can, to try just keep at it and like just don't forget like the reason you're doing this. Like you're providing a service to the community, and the community remembers these things, or like they'll be back and they'll appreciate it. So that's what we're trying to do, is to try to like figure out ways to not be annoying, but remind people like, hey, we're open, and if you need this thing, we're here for you, type of a thing. So,
and even if you're not open, nice. Welcome to the Zoom world. The first time I did this from here, I forgot to turn the phone lines off in the restaurant, and of course, like nobody's ever here during the day. The phone was like, and I was like, I was in the middle of a broadcast, nothing I could do. So. What was I going to say? Even if you're not open and currently active, though, I think what you said is really important. Like stay top of mind through your social media, through your website, get creative. I've seen some really creative things that companies that were just forced to completely shut down, not able to operate at all, not considered essential, would potentially be hazardous, and still, trying just sprinkle little imagery, videos and stuff in front of people because they have every intention of opening back up. And I think depending on your type of operation, so right next to Della now, where the dry cleaners used to be, there's a game space. In fact, I just had the guy on the show right before this all went down. He had just opened, and it was so funny because it was like, this guy's brand new. He's hot. He's fired up. He hasn't hit like the real road bumps yet. So I wanted to bring him on to see like what his disposition was. And like the next week he had to close. And I'm like, well, there you go. So I'm going to bring him back on soon because he's weathered and battered at this point. Yeah. But, what I was going to say was, it's like a game lab, like the places throughout Park Slope, it's just like a gaming center. And essentially, like he's built out, his gear is all in there. He is the only employee. Obviously, he's behind on rent and utilities right now. But essentially, a business like that. I mean, I make it sound easy because I'm running a bunch of crazy operations right now, and if we shut down, that would be it. I mean, essentially, he can turn the key, turn on the lights, muster up some money to pay some bills to get himself back operational. And of course, he's not going to make any money for 2020. But if he loves his business and he's dedicated to this, which I think he is, he could get back open. Where if you were like a retail store with perishables or a restaurant and you shut down, like how do you start back? That it costs so much money to open for one day. I don't know how they're going to do that. That one's the one that I'm scratching my head at. But a lot of these businesses that I think could shift gears pretty quickly and get back up. And I think it's really important for them to continue, as you were saying, like stay top of mind, let people know we're still here. There's still potential. We're not, don't be forgotten. Like don't let yourself be forgotten.
It's possibly also a good opportunity for businesses to think about ways to go online. Like we're working the jiu-jitsu studio, Unity, which I think I told you about before.
No, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Check them out. They're in Manhattan. And they had been wanting to do an online, kind of like a video on demand type of a website to teach people how to do jiu-jitsu online for years. And, we had always said, yeah, sure, just let us know. We'll do it. And then like now that this is happening, we're like, okay, we need this now.
Like, yeah.
So, kind of scrambling to get that going. And, it's kind of, other clients of ours who also were mainly brick and mortar businesses, but like had spent the time to create an online presence extremely well right now. Like we had another like to just contrast that with like another fitness company. We have this other one that we work with called BaliX, and they had us over the course of like the last 2 years. We've been creating this video on demand system for them. And now their business is better than ever. Like they like a big uptick because everybody's at home working out. So, and it's not just that type of a business. Like, any business could have some sort of good online presence. So that it's good to start thinking if you haven't already and you're a brick and mortar, you should think like Game Lab or somebody like that. I could totally see running games online. Like that's like totally doable.
Even if you're not making money, just to stay engaged with people,
Yeah, exactly. And cool. Some people are making money on it too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we're going to take a quick break. All right, Brent, we'll be back in just a few, everyone. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network. Do you run or are ready to open your own business? Hi, I'm Jeremiah Fox. I've been operating and opening small business for the last 25 years, and I'm the host of the new show, The Entrepreneurial Web. Tune in every Friday at noon Eastern Time for insights and stories on the nuances of running small business right here on Fridays at noon, talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Talking Alternative Radio, 24 hours a day.
All right, everybody. Once again, welcome back. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox, here with my friend, he's still working on my web stuff. Former neighbor, we'll call him that. He's still my friend, former neighbor, still working on my web presence. Brent Lagerman of Condensed Branding and Web Design. We were just discussing how important it is for businesses, whether you're still active right now or inactive, to stay top of mind. You must use some digital presence because we can't get close to each other. A lot of businesses, people can't even come in your place anymore. And Brent has some really good ideas. And he was just talking about some of the businesses he's been servicing. Two of them, both are fitness oriented. One is a fitness program where people can do it at home. And the other, you said, was Unity Jiu-Jitsu. Is that right?
Yeah. And they had been wanting to create this online presence for the longest time and just kept pushing it, punting it forward. And now it's like at the point where it's a necessity. So, and I think that, because of COVID and because of what's happening, just once we get out of this, who's to say that it's not going to come back? Or, it just shows that, you really do need an online presence. You don't know what's going to happen.
Going forward, it's going to be a must. And it's funny because, I've been training jiu-jitsu for almost 5 years now and really, at least paid attention to a lot of the trends that have been happening with it. And people started to kick out online instructional videos. And there's one particular person who has had a lot of success with it, which is John Danaher out of Henzo Gracie Academy in Manhattan. I think he's like the head jiu-jitsu instructor there. And he started a video series with BJJ Fanatics. And I mean, they're like 8 hours long. They're like really, really in depth. And he was selling them. You could buy them like DVDs or you could download them. And he was cranking them out. And that probably started, I don't know, maybe a year to 18 months ago. And I think other people were like, okay, we got to get on this. Like there's money to be made there and it's good for branding and it's good for awareness and it's, potentially good for jiu-jitsu. But of course it's always been, it's same with restaurants. It's like my place. I want you to come inside. I don't want to send you food to eat it on your couch. Like that's a disservice. I mean, right now we're adjusting because that's just the name of the game. But I think a lot of places like that were like, no, this is supposed to be like hands-on. And now you can't be so hands-on and there are probably going to be limitations going forward. I mean, I'm reading like what the federal requirements for phase 1 of like reopening a dining room is. And it's just like, oh my God, it's crazy. It's like no more than 10 people, everybody in masks and gloves, checking temperatures, disposable menus, no talking between the staff and the patron. Just literally like they're ordering from an app on their phone and paying and just, I'm like, God, that's not Dala, man. This is like, you come in, we get close, we talk. What's that?
might as well do takeout at that point.
Well, I mean, we are right now. I mean, that's our only business, but I think that's going to be a big part of it. And so, like, just for everybody listening, what I did with you recently, what Brent did all of our branding and our web design so far, and as soon as this kicked in, I was like, I need to make the website, because people were calling and they were like, I'm looking for things on your website, and it wasn't set up to like look quickly, place an order, even over the phone. It was this longer, more intimate thing, explore, look around the same. We wanted it to be a representation of like how you would be if you came into Della. And now it's not like that. So I was like, we got to switch this up like quickly. Oh, just a splash page with what we offer right now, what's available right now, what our hours are, how you can reach us, boom, in and out, 1, 2, 3. And it made the biggest difference. So thank you for that, because it really helped out a lot. And I think that's like the takeaway for people right now is like, just find those adjustments. We had to do the same thing at the wine store. We had to set up a full e-commerce site. And we've been talking about this for 12 years and never did anything about it. And all of a sudden it was like, no, now is the time. And it's been fantastic. It's been so fantastic. And the store's still open there. People still walk inside, but it's just responding to people's demands. Like, what do people need? What are the real needs? And that is like the essence of entrepreneurship, is like, here's the needs, here's the solution, who's going to put it together? And that is the entrepreneur. So we were just like, okay, we have to do this now. We did. And of course there were some bumps, but it worked out, and it's serviced a whole lot of people. Now there's still plenty of people that are just like, I want to come in. I'm like, fine, you can come in. But there are so many people who are like, I'm scared to come in. I just want to walk to your door, stand outside and be like, hey, this is my name. And we hand them a box full of self-medication.
Now needed more than ever, right?
Oh boy. Cool. So what other kind of things have been happening for you, and what is your projection for kind of based off the companies you've been servicing? You don't have to be specific about companies or details, but just a general projection about the future of some of the, of brick and mortar, and then also like how digital can best service, and then make sure you tell everybody, because I'll probably forget information to get in contact with you if they'd like.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's really hard to say the future, obviously, but I like we already covered, I think there's not going to be any real excuse not to have a digital presence anymore. I think that people need to really double down on that. And even if everything gets like to be rainbows and leprechauns when we get out of this, which is probably not going to be the case, digital presence is never bad. Like, it's never a bad investment. So even if everything was going great with your brick and mortar, still people need to find you. They're going to look online to find you. So it's good to have a really good, solid digital presence. And the more that you can try to find ways to offer up your services virtually I think can just be good for you for the long term. When we were helping you do this little pivot, it was a crazy time, because I think I actually had COVID. I had like this two-week really bad flu. So luckily we have a team that can work through that. And I was like out for a bit. But I think, everybody else out there who hasn't gotten it yet, it's not fun. And there's going to be a lot of fear and uncertainty in these next coming months, especially with things reopening. So, just try to stay safe and try to find ways to get online and do things in a safe, responsible way, I guess is my advice. And you can find me on condensed.io, condensed, condensed.io.
So I've talked to people from a bunch of different industries lately. And just even before this, the only people I talked to and really hung out and spent time with were like business owners from a bunch of different industries. It just turned out that way. But lately, the feedback I'm getting, especially from people that are just like pretty much exclusively involved in digital products and services, are like, no, we're doing okay. Like, in fact, some of us are doing better right now. So it seems like it's always a good investment, whether it's just like a subsidy, like a small part of your business, that there's a digital thing happening that you're investing in and there's a monetary exchange on, or whether you're like a full-blown investor or participant in a digital company. It's been on my radar for about the last year. Like, oh, and I hated it before. I interviewed this guy who was like, he started his own digital marketing company. And I was like, so you have no rent, you have no, like, you don't pay taxes, you have no employees, and he was like, yeah, no, you start an LLC and away you go. And I'm like, I need to fucking do this, man. Cause I just got like, there's no inspectors, like nothing. I'm going through hell to make like peanuts. And this guy's like chilling. He's like, I think I'm going to buy a house in this neighborhood. And I'm like, motherfucker, it's a good move.
Yeah, no, we don't do really digital marketing. That's like a whole lot of things. But yeah, I agree. It's such a, if you really do spend the time and become like a top tier digital marketer, you're doing well. Let's just say that.
Right. But just any way you can exchange monetarily, digitally was a good move before. And now like super good move and probably a necessity going forward.
Yeah, I would say for sure.
So have you guys seen, have things been stable for you? Have you seen less activity? Have you seen more?
We've seen, a lot less activity because we basically create new businesses. Like that's our kind of bread and butter, and
right.
Have slowed down substantially. Our other side of things is just maintaining and helping out the businesses that we started. And so in those respects, we've been able to stay afloat just because like these people need help, and we're helping them continue to keep going. But yeah, no, we've taken a huge hit as far as like nobody's starting a business in the last month. We've had like one business that has started in the last month that we've worked on is this kind of another cool fitness startup that they're just trying to do a kind of like a social workout through where they do it's kind of like it's called Anchor, ANCKOR .love. I can't remember.
Again, no details.
But you know, it's very rare that anybody is starting something right now. So you know, the branding space is taking a huge hit for sure.
Yeah,
and you know, just trying to bring companies online, that's been good to try to help out with that. But you know, it's not the kinds of businesses that are flourishing right now, or maybe the kinds that have like a direct to consumer online presence that is like really, you know, and that like, for instance, like an online workout, like we've been seeing a lot of that, an uptick in those types of businesses.
And I think
it's been down for sure.
Yeah. I think that's another good point about the potential future is that the reports coming out are even young people that just were not healthy, that, you know, where obesity was a factor, where diabetes, people with poor diets and people that had been pretty sedentary, they're really struggling through this. So there could be a big opportunity for online fitness, you know, just fitness in general, but definitely online, being able to do it out of, you know, the privacy of your own home, and consultation on diet. And, you know, that's something I would totally get down with. I mean, in terms of offering it, because I love to eat well and I love to work out. And I've taught a few classes. So that's,
I think well is the other side of the coin, right? Like people really do need to start, getting good food and just making sure they're not eating crap, you know?
Right. And, you know, I've participated largely in the food, distribution, to people lately, you know, even Della's been, distributing lunches to hospital workers through a nonprofit organization here. But also just like my participation in the Wood Terrace Food Co-op as well. And it became top of mind for people really quickly, like, oh, we need good food, not just, but like all food stores have done great. Like the bodegas are doing like double. Well, they were for a while. I don't know what it's like right now, but they were definitely doing like double their normal business, you know, and grocery stores. And so like people really focused on food. I think those would be two really good takeaways for people too, is like, you need to be fit, find those ways to do it. There's going to be a lot of resources, and make sure you're getting the right kind of nutrition.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cool. Keep your immunity.
Yeah. Sure. Well, thank you so much, man. We're going to finish your portion of the show. Really great to catch up with you. You will definitely be hearing from me soon. We're going to continue this relationship. I've got some ideas for what the future of Della is going to look like, and I'm going to need your help. So thank you for everything you've done so far. You and the family take care. Great talking to you. When we come back, we're going to be talking to Alex Clark from Fort Hamilton Rye. We'll be back with you in just a few, everyone. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network at www.talkingalternative.com. Now, broadcasting 24 hours a day. Talking Alternative.
Do you run or are ready to open your own business? Hi, I'm Jeremiah Fox. I've been operating and opening small business for the last 25 years, and I'm the host of the new show, The Entrepreneurial Web. Tune in every Friday at noon Eastern Time for insights and stories on the nuances of running small business right here on Fridays at noon, talkradio.nyc.
Do you love or are you intrigued about New York City and its neighborhoods? I'm Jeff Goodman, host of Rediscovering New York, a weekly show that showcases New York's history and its extraordinary neighborhoods. Every Tuesday live at 7 p.m., we focus on a particular neighborhood and explore its history, its vibe, its feel, and its energy. Tune in live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on talkradio.nyc.
I'm the aptly named host of Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio. Big nonprofit ideas for the other 95%. Fundraising, board relations, social media. My guests and I cover everything that small and mid-sized shops struggle with. If you have big dreams and a small budget, you have a home at Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio. Fridays 1 to 2 Eastern at talkingalternative.com.
Talking Alternative Radio, 24 hours a day.
Welcome back, everybody. Once again, you're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox, coming live from Brooklyn, New York, where this portion of the show, I will be joined by the owner of Fort Hamilton Rye, based in Brooklyn, New York here as well. My guest, Alex Clark. Alex, how the hell you doing, man?
Hi, Jeremiah. I'm doing really well, man. Thanks for having me on the show. Finally.
Nice shirt.
Yeah.
Nice shirt.
oh, yeah. Thank you. Hey,
finally.
I like yours too. We're twinsies.
Why are you busting my balls? You were the one that couldn't come on the show.
Yeah, well, shutdowns have their upsides. What can I say?
You ain't got no job.
That's right. Unemployment. What can I say? It's a beautiful thing.
Okay, so let's give everybody your backstory. You started a whiskey company, a spirits company here in New York called Fort Hamilton, named after the Fort Hamilton base in Bay Ridge, but also it's the name of the train station in our neighborhood where we live on the F. And there's some irony to that because our friend Alex here is from Great Britain. And the Fort Hamilton base was originally a British base, but it was taken by the US. And I think he's come to take it back. I think he's going to try to get everybody hammered.
That's right.
And he's going to just take it back. He's going to give just that base back to the crown. He's going to be like, I got something for you. Just this little bit. They're all drunk. You can just walk right in.
That's the plan.
That's the plan. I knew it, man. I fucking knew it. Anyways, give everybody a little history into how and why you would start something so crazy and lucrative, right?
Oh, yeah. So lucrative.
give us a little history. How did you get involved in spirits besides just the fact that you drink too much?
Well, there's that. But, I kind of got from one side of the bar to the other and worked with Sasha Petrasky, who famously opened a bar called Milk and Honey in the late 90s in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And that's considered kind of ground zero for the cocktail renaissance, which has been going on ever since. He kind of came up with this speakeasy style bar and was a kind of secretive, made beautiful cocktails using only the finest ingredients, went back into the history books to look at the original recipes and bring those back to life. It's something that had been replaced by sour mix and bright colors throughout the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. But delving back into the origins of spirits and liquors and cocktails was what he did well, and has been emulated and copied by many others since. And yeah, yourself included. I think the truth is we all owe a debt to that guy.
Absolutely.
Shining a light back on some beautiful American history and some original American class. So, I got behind the bar with those guys and started learning how to make cocktails properly. Back in the UK, I would pour pints and shots, and that was one thing.
Savagery.
Yeah, savagery, exactly. But, really, really understanding the craft of cocktails, it brought it to life for me, and started to delve into the history of it and realized that rye whiskey was the base for a lot of the classic American cocktails. Yep. But back then in 2006, I think it was, when I was doing this, there wasn't really any rye to be had in America. There was two brands, really. There was Rittenhouse, which is an old Pennsylvania brand, which was snapped up by a Kentucky distiller and was produced down in Kentucky ever since. And Old Overholt, similarly, a Pennsylvania brand, which was transported to Kentucky. Corn was added to these mash bills. The flavor profiles were watered down, and as were the proof of the spirits. So you couldn't really find anything that spoke to the history of rye whiskey, and yet all these rye whiskey cocktails were now coming back into fashion. Mm-hmm. So it sort of occurred to me that we should be looking to recreate that original style of rye whiskey, and New York was ground zero for the rye whiskey production back in the day, and the northeast of America, where rye grows plentifully. So it's a hardy winter crop, cover crop for most farmers, and grows well in harsh winter conditions. So North America, the northern eastern part of America, is good for that. And as you continue to go further north into Canada, that continues as well. That's why the Canadians are pretty fond of rye too. So after I left the bartending with those guys, I started to launch as the director of sales, a brand called Widow Jane, which is quite a famous whiskey in New York, if not America now. It was one of the earliest craft whiskeys out of New York City. So I launched that brand, took them to the distribution in the back of a car, and did a lot of the hard work. It was a bourbon for the most part. And truth be told, my main love is rye whiskey. So I made it my mission to put rye back on its pedestal as the king of the American whiskey. A long way to go on that one.
You got some time.
Yeah, it's a little bit of time before we manage to do that. But I think it's a worthwhile mission. Rye is
absolutely
a much more complex whiskey than bourbon is, and consequently, it makes much more complex cocktails, which is why a lot of people favor it in an old fashioned and a Manhattan. And once people discover, you can convince someone to switch their bourbon Manhattan to a rye Manhattan, even if it's just one time, you can end up with a legion of fans because it's just better. So that's what I've been up to, really. So trying to figure out how to build Fort Hamilton into a viable business, and overcome all the obstacles that are there, which are plentiful. And not least of which is the need for inventory, and that's really the biggest thing I've been dealing with for the last 4 years is building up inventory.
And you went from the consumer side.
Yeah,
I think you're still a consumer. Two, you were on the service end, much like myself, where you were selling it to consumers, and then you transitioned to pretty much, I mean, I know you still bartend some, but your main goal right now is to supply restaurants and retail stores with your product, with the product. So you've gone to the supply side now,
Yeah, moving up the chain, I guess.
Is that, I think you make less money now, though.
Definitely.
There's like that yin and yang to it, you know.
There is, but you know, I guess rather stupidly, I don't think I set out with money being the goal here,
right?
Or rather sensibly. You know,
yeah, we're in the same boat.
Disappointed by the lack of money.
We're going to be in the same stupid boat together, going.
That's okay. You know, I think heart goes a long way in this business, and
in spirits.
And yes, indeed.
You want the hearts, no heads and tails.
To make my goal not so much, you know, just making money, but to really get behind rye whiskey as a category and to elevate it. Is you know, a good goal to have. So that's what I've been really doing. But that involves, you know, educating people. And I think part of the game has been to get people on board with rye whiskey. A lot of people consider rye like, oh, that's Canadian whiskey. That's what my dad drank, you know, Canadian Club or something, which it isn't. You know, Canadian rye is generally, you know, mostly neutral spirit blended with a very little bit of Canadian rye whiskey. Whereas American rye is a lot of rye in the mash bill, no blending ingredients, so you get a much more fuller and richer product. So to start, you have to educate people that rye isn't what your granddad drank, and American rye is this very special thing that almost disappeared. And you know, pre-prohibition, rye was the biggest whiskey in America and the biggest alcoholic liquor in America. And prohibition wiped out most of the distilleries in the northeast of America. And post-prohibition, there are other industries there that had taken their place. And ultimately, they didn't reopen. And so most of the distillations in America centered after prohibition in Kentucky. And Kentucky distillers love nothing more than distilling corn.
Right.
Throwing it in a barrel and calling it bourbon. But the flavor profile is different. It's sweeter, it's less complex, it's a little less spicy, it makes it be a little less rich as well.
Yeah.
But it's also cheaper to make. So from a producer's perspective, your business perspective, you're probably better off making corn whiskey, aka bourbon. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're making tasty whiskey.
No, we're just talking about money.
Yeah, exactly. It's you know, financially speaking, it's a good decision, but. I think what's interesting that the times we're living in now is that people are looking for authenticity in flavors, and they're looking for more complex flavors. And just as the world of craft beer has matured from everyone wanting a Coors Light or a Bud Light in the 1980s to almost I think 20% of beer sales in America now are craft beers, which have much more interesting, varied flavor profiles, including bitterness. You know, you're looking at IPAs, which are so super popular, and that's a complex flavor note and something that people develop over time. And just as people, I think, were conditioned to like bourbon in the 20th century. People are looking for more almost adult flavors now as we move forward, and that's what we're trying to offer. You know,
especially while they're sitting at home.
Yeah. Oh, it's widely available.
I've been supplying a lot of it lately.
Yeah. And that's one of the issues that we're facing right now as well. Is that obviously I've been building my business, and we were about to launch our distillery and tasting room in Industry City. And unfortunately, construction has ground to a halt on that because it's been mandated by the governor, rightly so. But our big flag waving, tub thumping launch that we were having this year has been halted. We have products lined up, like our new Fort Hamilton gin, which was slated to come out this spring, which are also on hold. So we're dealing with some of these issues as best we can, and looking at how to focus the business and refocus it now and in the future, and potentially retool it slightly.
Hand sanitizer.
Hand sanitizer, yes, that's one thing you could do. But also look at online sales. The New York State has relaxed the laws around the 3-tier system of distribution to allow craft distillers now to sell directly from distilleries and ship across New York State.
Gotcha.
That's an interesting revenue stream. If you have finished the build out of your distillery, which we haven't.
Yes.
So yeah, but I mean, there are things like that which potentially point to a future in which the online market is going to be increasingly important, and I think we're seeing that. If you just have to look around, and
yeah, definitely
all shifting that way. I think it was shifting that way generally, but slowly, and I think we're going to see an acceleration of that, and potentially, once the door is open, the horse ain't getting back in the stable.
We're going to give the horse a break for just a minute, okay? We'll be back in just a moment. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web.
Talking Alternative Radio, 24 hours a day.
I'm the aptly named host of Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio. Big nonprofit ideas for the other 95%. Fundraising, board relations, social media. My guests and I cover everything that small and mid-sized shops struggle with. If you have big dreams and a small budget, you have a home at Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio. Fridays 1 to 2 Eastern at talkingalternative.com.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
talkingalternative.com.
Okay, everybody. Welcome back once again. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. I'm your host, Jeremiah Fox. We're bringing it to you live from Brooklyn, New York, with my friend Alex Clark, the owner of Fort Hamilton Rye, aptly named after the base here, the old Fort Hamilton base in Bay Ridge, but also after the train station in our neighborhood, Windsor Terrace, the Fort Hamilton station on the F. So Alex was just talking to us about getting his legs in the liquor industry, which can be hard to do, but also building a brand. And he pointed out 3 really interesting things, which I want to kind of expand on in this section. Alex, you were just talking about online presence. Were you listening to Brent's portion at the beginning?
I missed it. I'll check it later.
That's so crazy because that's all we talked about. Do you know Brent Lagerman? He lived in the neighborhood for a long time. They had Founders Workspace up on Prospect and 10th.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about, but our paths have not crossed somehow.
Gotcha. So web design guy, building brands and even like e-commerce for businesses. And he was saying the same thing, like, a lot of people were like, oh, yeah, no, I need to do this. And like back against the wall, you're in the fly paper. You're like, holy shit, I got to do this now. Got to launch that website. Got to make myself more available. Same with the wine store, Juicebox. We've been talking about building e-commerce site for 12 years. And we did it last month because it was like, we just had to. We just totally had to. Yeah, yeah. So that, and you said the state is going to allow New York State distilleries that actually like have a tasting room and everything, they will be allowed to ship statewide. You won't be able to cross state lines, right? It's still just the distribution, the tangible distribution where you can only distribute within New York State.
State has their own, set of laws. Some 3-tier systems like we have. It's all somewhat archaic.
Yeah, sure.
Extremely opaque, especially when you start to cross state lines.
Yeah, which we're close to a couple.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of crazy, right? Like I could send it to, upstate New York and, Syracuse, but I can't send it to Hoboken.
Right.
Which is, odd.
12 miles away.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We're going to work on that. We're going to work on those opaque laws. It's because they've been drinking too much bourbon.
Yeah. So, those laws are also probably due for an update. And I think that's something that people have been looking at for a while. But there are businesses built on the fact that these laws are opaque. And wholesalers thrive on that because they can navigate it and they have their warehouses. But it creates all sorts of uncompetitive behavior. But, ultimately everyone gets the taxes paid, which is kind of the key for the government, and understandably. And the other argument that is used is that it kind of helps keep liquor out of the hands of minors and helps keep counterfeit liquor out of the supply chain. Mm-hmm. All reasonable points.
Yes.
But these laws were written down, almost 100 years ago now.
Right.
The world has changed. So,
big time.
Yeah.
Big time. So for you as a supplier now, what have you noticed in terms of demand or lack thereof of your, you speak from your product, but maybe you've spoken to other people as well?
Yeah, I have. I mean, our mix of retail stores versus restaurants and bars was skewed towards, liquor stores in terms of our business. But it's one thing selling, a case or two in a liquor store, and it's quite another thing getting onto a cocktail menu in a bar or restaurant, which increases exposure. It's hard to do. It involves, relationships and relationship building. But when you do it, that's really how you can build a brand and get people to try it. And then they're like, okay. Then they go to the liquor store and buy a bottle as well. And hopefully, if you've done a reasonable job, they've become fans. So obviously that portion of the business has just disappeared. Mm-hmm. And that's tricky. So how do you get people to taste your product?
I'm still selling battery F's to go. People are still, they're like, I want that one.
Some way of doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's a few of us.
But and that's okay. That keeps things going. But it's hard to expand like that.
Yeah.
So in terms of moving through inventory, like I have to make decisions on my inventory 4 years in advance. So there's going to be a lot of people around now that have a lot of inventory just sitting there, don't know what to do with it, which may be good news because maybe there'll be a lot of cheap whiskey on the market later this year. Who knows?
Right.
But the other way that we built our brand, or we're building our brand, was through doing liquor store tastings, in-store tastings, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, which we very much enjoyed doing, meeting general public, getting to tell our story, and be able to sell a bottle of whiskey at the same time. And that's something that's disappeared as well, which is one of the core elements of our business. So we've, it's tricky. How do you navigate this stuff? The new products that we had lined up to be released through our distributor. Well, the distributors are hurting too, right? They're sitting on inventory that they were pretty sure they were going to sell 6 months ago that now they can't sell because their buyers in restaurants and bars don't exist anymore. Those bars and restaurants don't exist currently and may not come back either.
Right.
So I guess one of the largest challenges right now is to even understand what the landscape looks like in a year's time, or 6 months time, or 6 weeks time.
Yeah. Well, I've been reading the federal protocols for phase 1 of reopening a restaurant. And essentially like a place like Della, I don't think anybody could sit at the bar. You could not sit at the bar and get like your education from Taylor on Fort Hamilton rye whiskey, like have a sip and like watch him make a cocktail for you. Like that's not going to happen for some time. Even if like we survive, it's going to be like over a year before that could take place again.
Yeah.
It's pretty crazy.
It's massively crazy, and I know that the margins that you guys work with are minimal, and it's at the best of times the margins are minimal. So to ask someone to half fill their restaurant and go about it like nothing's changed is impossible.
Yeah,
and I think I don't know how anyone's going to navigate that. Again, for me, it what do you turn to? Do you turn to online tastings? Do you turn to online education? We're still intending to open our tasting room and distillery this year. This summer, at this point, it looks like.
Yeah.
We get back to construction next month. We're only a few weeks away from finishing the project. Maybe we can be hosting. We will be hosting whiskey education events. We will be hosting maybe cocktail classes. Something perhaps where we don't have to pack a room full of people having a good time drinking cocktails, but can still, talk about our product and show people a good time.
I think virtually is definitely the move, and it's just the way, that's what Brent and I talked about at the beginning of the show, just staying top of mind. And the other thing that you pointed out, which I think is really important, is education. And I mean, just in everything right now, because I've got my ear to the rail on so many things. I'm involved in a number of different businesses, so I'm hearing it from all different sides. And people are just like, what the fuck is going on? And they just need that little nugget of information. And I've taken that upon myself, where at times where I'm like, fuck, man, I don't want to talk about this anymore. It's heavy for me too. It is so important to just deliver that. People want that more than anything. And then like, okay, that guy helped me. I'll spend some money with him at some point. Maybe not right now, but like, just to put that out there and help, I think is huge. One last thing before we go. Can you educate people where they can find out information about you and Fort Hamilton Rye? I'm glad you asked, Jeremiah. Thank you. FortHamilton.com has all the info that you need. How do you spell that? Spell it for them. FortHamilton.com. And nice. at Fort Hamilton Rye, if you're an Instagram kind of person. Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're going to have to wrap it up, man. Thank you so much. I'm glad we finally got you on the show. Yeah, it took a goddamn pandemic to get you on the show. This guy's a hustler. He was always like, sorry, man, I ain't got time. Nope. Friday, forget about it. I can't do Fridays. Boy, too busy, man. You're like me. That's awesome. Cool. Well, thank you so much. I'm always going to patronize you, and anything I can do to help get your word out. I've always loved what you did. And he's fun too. He's a nice guy. If you get a chance to hang around Alex, you got to stay 6 feet away, but that's close enough. Any closer, you're like, I don't know, man. It is a pandemic. No, right? He's a great dude. So check him out. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. Take care of yourself. Make sure you wash your hands. You're listening to the Entrepreneurial Web. We'll see you next week. Peace out.
Talking Alternative Radio, 24 hours a day.
Do you run or are ready to open your own business? Hi, I'm Jeremiah Fox. I've been operating and opening small business for the last 25 years, and I'm the host of the new show, The Entrepreneurial Web. Tune in every Friday at noon Eastern Time for insights and stories on the nuances of running small business right here on Fridays at noon, talkradio.nyc.
I'm the aptly named host of Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio. Big nonprofit ideas for the other 95%. Fundraising, board relations, social media. My guests and I cover everything that small and mid-sized shops struggle with. If you have big dreams and a small budget, you have a home at Tony Martignetti Nonprofit Radio. Fridays 1 to 2 Eastern at talkingalternative.com.
Hey, all you crazy listeners. Looking to boost your business? Why not advertise on Talking Alternative with very reasonable rates? Interested? Simply email at info@talkingalternative.com.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant, and on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's the Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network at www.talkingalternative.com. Now, broadcasting 24 hours a day. Talking Alternative.
Do you love or are you intrigued about New York City and its neighborhoods? I'm Jeff Goodman, host of Rediscovering New York, a weekly show that showcases New York's history and its extraordinary neighborhoods. Every Tuesday live at 7 p.m., we focus on a particular neighborhood and explore its history, its vibe, its feel, and its energy. Tune in live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network.